that the other would behave as much or as the same as yourself. When we are in a relationship or we are in a quarrel at work or whatever, we tend to analyze the other's behavior through an understanding of our own conduct. It is very natural. But when it comes to Israeli brutality, the more brutal the Israelis are, the more they are convinced that the Palestinians, for instance, or the Iranians, or whoever they attacked at the time, are as brutal. So how do they react? They become subject to their own terror, and they become more brutal. And when they become more brutal, they're even more horrified by the others. It is very simple. What we really see is a vicious circle of self-inflicted terror. And as it happens, the more brutal the Israelis become, the more hopeless the Palestinians are. The more hopeless the Palestinians are, the more vicious and horrified and terrorized the Israeli becomes, because they consequently become more and more brutal. Do you understand what is going on here? At a certain stage, the Palestinians really don't do anything. There is no Israeli-Palestinian conflict. There is just Israeli brutality, a form of collective psychosis, a constant mode of hyperventilation with no end. Can you see what I'm talking about? It sounds complicated, but it is not that complicated. You know, think on your own life. If you are slightly angry with your lover and you think of it's funny, we all smile, and you think of a unique way to punish him or her, you may be eventually subject to the terrifying idea that he may be as vicious as you. It's horrifying. I'm sure that you don't think, it's like, it never occurred to you or whatever. But I know because I'm slightly vicious. And there is a big question. How do we drift away from this astonishing, terrorizing, collective, psychotic mode? I try to look at it in political terms. It was very clear to me that there is not a single political ideology that addresses this issue. But there was one person who addressed this issue. He lived in Nazareth many years ago. He realized what was going on. He was surrounded by this collective identity, ideology, whatever you want to call it. And he said it was a genius idea. He said, turn the other cheek. This is the only way out. This is the only way to resolve vengeance. Now, it is not very surprising that he was, I hope that you don't mind me saying it, he was a Jew. A lot of humanists were Jews. Spinoza, great humanist, a Jew. Marx, I don't talk about Marxists, but Marx was definitely a great humanist, and he was a Jew. What is common to all these wonderful Jews? They were self-haters. Why they were self-haters? Because they identified something within their identity which they tried to confront. And this is why that's so crucial. I think that Jews are becoming very, very productive and effective and great humanists when they turn against themselves. You cannot argue with Jesus' contribution to ethics. You may want to argue with Marx, but I think that Marx purely is exactly the same message. It's a message of brotherhood. It's a secular message of brotherhood. Love the other. Now, what is the problem that we have in Israel?
Jews.
This is a complicated way to look at it. I wouldn't say Jews, but I would say Jewish ideology. Definitely. Because there is no such a thing as Jews. There is no racial continuum. There is nothing in common between Jews in Yemen and Jews in Poland. But in Israel, they somehow all succumb to this Jewish ideology. We and them. But it's not nice to slug off Israel without being honest enough and to admit that we have the same problem here. We have the same problem here. What is the war against terror here? It's the war against terror within. The more bombs we throw on Iraqi civilians, we don't do that now for a while. Now we throw bombs on Tripoli. We always throw bombs on some other people. The more terrified we become by the possibility that the others are as moronically stupid as us. And it is possible that some other people are as stupid as us. It's more than possible. And it's frightening. Look what happened to America after it managed to win a war throwing 2 nuclear bombs, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It went straight into a Cold War, which was nothing but self-inflicted terror. They must have thought, these Russians, they must be as stupid as us. It took some time to recover. And when it comes to this war with no end, which we are in, we have to find a way to drift away out of this vicious circle. One of the mistakes that we have in the anti-war movement is that we think politically. It is not a political matter. It is an ethical matter, and it is a spiritual matter. It is an ethical matter because you don't do the other that which you don't want to be done to yourself. This is the basic idea of ethics, something that we never learn from politicians. And it is a spiritual matter if we follow Jesus' lesson. We turn the other cheek. Our politicians will drive us to the wall through endless terrorizing ideas. Look about this dynamic with Libya. He was the master terrorist, then he became a partner, now we just want to grab his oil, so we throw more bombs on us. Tomorrow they will tell us that there is a Libyan terror threat. They'll probably start to say it, I'm not following British press, but it's clear. And we have good reason to be afraid. We just killed his son a few weeks ago. We drop bombs on his family every day. This is where our elected politicians leading us. I started talking about Israel because this is definitely a microcosmos of inflated vengeance. But our Western liberal democracies are driven by a very similar frightening tendency. Now, for me, I can talk for hours, but I'm actually much more effective when a dialogue is launched. And if you want to punch me, start to do it. Feel free to come up with questions. You can do it with cards or whatever, but if you feel like saying something, it's like...
Okay,
yeah,
that's fine. Right. So we'll start a dialogue on this. Has everybody filled in any cards? They've got a question they want to ask. Can you pass them out to the front?
Do you know what happened in York in 1190?
Yeah.
Jewish Jews.
Yeah. I brought a parachute.
Is there any...
Yeah. I realize that you may be wrong. Yeah. Yeah.
Is there any way you could relate what you're saying to that situation?
You are talking about the persecution of the Jews, I assume.
Well, 150 Jews who threatened to
Yeah.
take their own
Yeah,
lives.
it is very clear. It is very clear to me that Jews didn't invent brutality. What is also clear to me is that unfortunately, within the concept of Jewish political or identity discourse, there is no correction mechanism. So if you look at Western culture, we look at Nazi Germany, so they really go wild, my God, you don't want to be around, between 33 or 45. But then Germany corrects itself. We have some devastating phases where the